Hello. Welcome to the Fabrico.Design channel. We develop professional sewing patterns and make them available to every woman. Using our patterns and video instructions, you can easily sew any garment at home and feel like a designer.
This is a video lesson on sewing Norway children's waterproof mittens. The mittens are made of water-repellent fabric and have an elastic band on the wrist. This way, the child can put the mittens on themselves. They won't fall off during a walk and won't get wet. Please note that all the patterns are signed. You can find the name of the pieces and their number on the patterns. Before cutting, be sure to read the sewing specifications. This way you will understand how many pieces you should get from the main fabric, from the insulation, and from the lining fabric. Remember that we have 2 mittens, and the second mitten needs to be cut in mirror image. There are also control marks on the patterns. Be sure to transfer them to the cutting pieces. During the sewing process, these marks will help you in joining the parts together. When cutting, you can fold the fabric in half, right side inward, and cut out all the details at once in 2 copies. Also, when cutting, you can use something heavy to fix the details along the cut. Otherwise, pin the pieces strictly along the seam allowance. The thing is that tailor's pins leave traces of punctures, so be careful. So, let's see what we got. Pieces from the main fabric. Bottom cuff, 2 pieces in mirror image. Outer finger, 2 pieces in mirror image. Bottom finger, 2 pieces in mirror image. Bottom palm, 2 pieces in mirror image. Top part of the mitten, 2 pieces in mirror image. Top part of the fingers, 2 pieces in mirror image. Inner facing, 2 pieces. And the side part of the palms, here we have 4 pieces. The lining of the mittens consists of 2 parts. Inner lining, 2 pieces, and finger lining, 2 pieces. Cut the lining out of fleece, as well as in mirror image. We will quilt the lining pieces with 100 grams insulation. Depending on the climate season, you may exclude this operation and sew the mittens without insulation. Cut out the insulation with a rough cut. Pin along the contour and stitch at 3 to 5 millimeters from the edge. Where the finger location is marked, we also need to secure the lining with insulation and stitch around it. After we have quilted all the pieces, we need to cut the excess insulation off. Next, cut out a hole for the thumb. Now, fold the finger piece from the lining in half and stitch around it. Remove the excess insulation in the finger hole. Turn the finger lining inside out and pin it along the contour, aligning the control points. Stitch around it at 5 millimeters from the edge. This is what we should end up with. Fold the lining part in half along the contour and stitch around it at 5 millimeters from the edge. Leave an unstitched opening for turning. Now take the facing pieces. Fold the facing pieces in half and sew them together. Straighten the seam allowances in different directions and place the facing inside the lining. Pin them together. Stitch at 5 millimeters from the edge. This is what you should end up with. Let's move on to assembling the pieces from the main fabric. Fold the palm side pieces face to face and sew them together. Next, connect the top part of the mitten and the finger piece. You can insert reflective piping into this relief if you wish. Pin the pieces together and stitch. This is what we got. Carefully cut the seam allowances on the rounded areas. Direct the allowances down and top stitch at 1 to 2 millimeters from the edge. Here's what we got. Let's move on to the elastic band on the wrist line. You will find the length of the elastic band in the instructions. Pin the elastic band along the marking line on both sides and make 2 parallel zigzag lines, stretching the elastic band. Here's what we got. Let's move on to assembling the lower part of the mittens. Pin the lower finger to the palm, aligning all the control points. Stitch at 5 mm from the edge. Carefully cut the seam allowances on the rounded areas. Pin the outer finger to the lower finger, aligning the control points. Important: having reached the point where the stitching line of the lower finger with the lower part ends, we need to carefully cut the seam allowance. Then stitch 5 mm from the edge. This is what it should look like. Cut the seam allowances on the rounded areas. Then turn it over to the right side and check the result. Assemble the pre-made palm side with the lower part of the mitten. Align the control points, pin the pieces together, and stitch at 5 mm from the edge. This is what we got. It is also necessary to cut the allowances in the places of rounding. Now, connect the bottom part of the cuff with the bottom part of the palm. Pin and stitch at 5 mm from the edge. This is what we got. Let's move on to the elastic band on the bottom of the cuff. You will find the length of the elastic band in the instructions. Pin and sew the elastic band on the sides along the marking line in the same way as we did before. This is what you should get. Connect the top and bottom parts of the mittens together. Pin the pieces along the contour and align the control points. Stitch at 5 mm from the edge. This is what you should get. Turn the mitten inside out and check that the stitching lines of the elastic band are symmetrical. Notch the seam allowances at the rounding points. The mitten is almost ready. All we have to do is connect it to the previously prepared lining. Turn the mitten from the main fabric inside out. Next, fold as shown in the video and insert into the lining. Be sure to align the side seams and control marks and pin the piece. Stitch 5 mm from the edge. This is what you should get. Turn the mitten inside out through the unstitched opening. Next, we will need this elastic. You will find the length of the elastic in the instructions. Cut the elastic to the length we need and sew it into a ring. Insert the elastic inside through the unstitched opening. Next, we need to secure the elastic between the facing piece and the base of the mittens. This can be done with clamps or tailor's pins. Stitch along the edge of the facing, forming a drawstring and fixing the elastic inside. Turn the mitten inside out again. We need to secure the base piece with the lining piece. Make a couple of securing stitches between the pieces and form air loops. This is what it should look like. Turn the mitten right side out. All we have to do is to close the unstitched opening. This can be done either with hand stitches or on a sewing machine. Turn the mitten right side out and admire the result. The mittens are ready.
Thanks for sewing with us. Subscribe to our channel and publish your photos in different social medias and tag us. You can find the link to our website in the description box below the video.